Good night and good luck.
The latest film by gorgeous George Clooney, who, of course, has demonstrated already that he's a bit of a whiz behind the camera, because he came on this programme, didn't he, with a thingy of a Dangerous Mind, Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, which is great. This is his latest directorial outing. He also co-stars in it. It's up for several awards, including Best Picture and Best Actor, and I think both the BAFTAs and the Oscars. David Strathairn as the legendary American TV newsman Ed Murrow, who had a battle against Senator Joe McCarthy. I know I'm stating the obvious here, but if you don't know this, Senator Joe McCarthy was kind of the head of the McCarthy anti-communist witch hunts in America in the 1950s. There have been several films already made about this subject, but, you know, we could always do with another one. Shot in nostalgic black and white, and almost all set within the confines of the television station, in which Moreau and his team have editorial meetings, do their broadcasts, and then experience the fallout from those broadcasts. Not big on action, big on talking. Now, it's an interesting thing about Clooney, because he's also up for a Best Supporting Actor Oscar in Syriana, of which I was less fond. That comes out later on. Stephen Gaghan, who I don't think is the world's greatest scriptwriter, but was famous for doing Traffic. This, to me, was a lovely film. I thought it was really engrossing and really intelligent. I loved the way it was shot, because people think it's easy to shoot in black and white. It's actually quite the opposite. It's harder to do really good black and white, and they do it beautifully. The attention to period detail is really, really great. Strathairn, I think, is a very strong contender for Best Actor, although obviously in most of the award ceremonies he's been up against, for example, Philip Seymour Hoffman as Capote, who won for Capote at the Golden Globes. And Philip Seymour Hoffman is terrific, and I think in the end he may well swing it. On the other hand, Joaquin Phoenix, who's absolutely great as Johnny Cash. It's a strange period at the moment. We're in an awards period for the first time in ages in which it's possible to look across a number of categories and say, you know, there are really 3 or 4 very, very strong contenders in each category. David Strathairn, however, is absolutely wonderful. And to some extent, he carries the film. He's this sort of rock-like, impassive character taking on this horrible spectre of Senator Joe McCarthy, who is played in the film by himself because they intercut newsreel of Joe McCarthy. Now, if, like me, you have a particular interest in the anti-communist witch hunts, you will find this absolutely engrossing. The question is whether people who aren't interested in that period enjoy it quite as much. Obviously, there is a political parallel with what's happening in America and news reporting today. I mean, one of the reasons that Clooney has chosen to do it, and Clooney's father was a newsman. And I think Clooney's father, didn't he have a bid to be an American politician, a failed bid to be an American politician? I may be making this up. I think he did. But don't sue me if he didn't. What the parallel is clearly that nowadays, in the wake of what's happened with the American foreign policy recently, American news in particular, I think we're looking at sort of Fox News Network for obvious reasons, have political prejudices that would not perhaps be true over here in England. I mean, here in England, we are very privileged to have, and I'm not just flag waving here, we are privileged to have the BBC, who are probably the most famously unbiased news organisation in the whole world for very, very simple reasons. We're not accountable to anybody.
Is your contract coming up?
Funnily enough, no. Oh. But so in America, they are much more used to having prejudicial news coverage. Of course, what's interesting is that in the case of the Moreau show, for one thing, his show was sponsored. It was sponsored by cigarettes that he smoked all the way through the shows, which, of course, nowadays looks terribly out of fashion. Particularly since didn't we just ban smoking in public places, which incidentally I think is a good thing. But I don't smoke, so I'm just mentioning it in passing.
But are there any other big political controversies you'd like to comment on, like the education plans?
No. The Comsat Angels just re-released their entire back catalogue on CD, and that's great news. But I don't think that's political. The point is that what he's doing is, some people have said that the movie it's a very easy thing to talk about McCarthyism because everybody understands that McCarthy, bad, freedom of speech, good. Well, it's not entirely true. There is, to some extent, at the moment, a kind of reappraisal of McCarthy in the same way there was a reappraisal of Nixon. I mean, it was unbelievable. You know, Nixon was this terrible crook, and then after his death, everyone started saying, well, actually, he wasn't that bad. He recognised China, and he ended up getting played by Anthony Hopkins in that movie, which incidentally I think is very good. In the case of this, what it says is, even then, the battle lines weren't as simply drawn as you think they might have been. The movie is bookended with Moreau giving a speech in which he basically says all newscasting is going to hell, and we are losing the ability to make programmes about serious political issues. And this is back in 1958 that he's saying this. So it's got this kind of harbinger of doom quality about it. Now, I found that engrossing. In the supporting performances, there's a great supporting performance from Robert Downey Jr., and I'm now finding myself in a very uneasy position, because for ages I absolutely hated Robert Downey Jr. He was completely out of control on screen and off screen, as far as I know. And every time he came on the screen, it was like just somebody showing off and shouting and bleating. And incidentally, I should complain about people showing off,
and shouting and
bleating. But he suddenly seems to have reined it in. I like the way instead you just raised your eyebrows at somebody behind me in the control, as if I wouldn't notice when you did that. I know they're making gestures behind my back. That's fine. I'm not paranoid. I understand.
I have a visual dialogue the whole time going on with all the cast.
Robert Downey Jr. is really good. George Clooney, really good. David Strathairn, really, really good. Design, cinematography, really good. Overall, is it a masterpiece? Well, for me, it's engrossing and informative and intelligent, and it may not be the great vanguard of the alleged new intelligent Hollywood. I mean, yes, there are 4 or 5 movies coming that have got overtly political issues. I guarantee you this time next year we'll be up to our neck in monster movies and movies in which people dress up as fat people and fall over. It's all cyclical. It always has been cyclical. It just happens that at the moment we've got a few of them coming together. It's like buses. You wait for ages, then 3 come at once. In this case, it happens to be 4 come at once. If you are interested in political dialogue, it's a real big hitter. If you're not, you may sit there thinking, why is this getting quite the acclaim it is? But then, if you're thick, then what can I do?
Sam, so anyone who disagrees with your assessment is thick, right? Okay, Sam in Kent.
But you say that sort of quizzically, like that's an odd thing to say.
I saw Good Night and Good Luck at a preview a couple of weeks ago. I have to say, contrary to most of the critics, I was rather disappointed.
Yeah,
it looks great, and the leads, Strathairn and Clooney, give very strong performances. However, it wasted the rest of a great cast. Why get someone as good as Patricia Clarkson and then give her so little to do? My other problem was that I felt it overused the archive footage, particularly of Joe McCarthy. I'd say that it's worth seeing for the lead performances and Clooney's direction, but I think critics are overrating it somewhat.
Well, that's a very balanced review, clearly by an intelligent listener.
Who happens to agree with you.
Well, no, he didn't, because what he said was that he thought it was a bit dull. But I think it does depend on you being interested in this particular subject matter. I think that's the key to it. And it's not going to win over a hugely wide audience. But it's really good that George Clooney, who has a fantastically popularist platform, because all women want to be with him and all men want to be him, allegedly. It's really good to see him taking on serious subject matter. Where do you stand on George Clooney? Do you think he's handsome, right?
This question to Sophie Benson.
I think he's very handsome.
And you, Simon?
I think he's gorgeous.
Yeah,
yes.
Gorgeous George.